So the cards that we're making in this class have different sentiments on them. They're all from the same sentiment step or stamp set. If you wanted, you could stamp and emboss individual sentiments. I'll tell you right now, it's really hard to cut just one that tiny. So this is what I like to do. I like to do an entire sheet, the entire stamp set, in a color of embossing powder, and then cut them all up, and I have them sitting in a tin here. So then when I just want a quick sentiment, I can go through here, and I'm trying to get all sorts of different powder colors on them and different backgrounds. So I'm working on white and black backgrounds, and I'm working on the metallic embossing, and I don't have one that is embossed with gold, so I'm going to show you how to do it. This is a great way to just have a bunch of sentiments already at a moment's notice. So I do this with my stamp set facing up, put my Versamark ink pad or ink on it. Versamark is a watermark ink that is sticky and stays wet for a while, so it's perfect for embossing. I just want to make sure there's nothing on my cardstock here. I'm holding it in place and I am rubbing it. Now I'll tell you right now, sometimes when you do this, you might have a sentiment or two that the embossing's wrong, you didn't get ink completely over it. I don't worry about it because most of them will work. So I just toss away the ones that don't, and sometimes the ones that don't, there might be a word or two that you could use. And I'll just cut out those words. I'm going to take my powder and put it on my embossing. I got to put it on the top. There we go. So now we have to emboss it. Before we emboss it, let's get this powder out of the way. All right, and you can see that I didn't put it straight on my piece of cardstock. I typically try to get it straight, but it doesn't always work. So here's the magic. Right now it is matte and it's not shiny. When I'm heating it with the heat gun and I want to have my heat gun a couple inches away, it's gonna melt and it's gonna go nice and glossy, and that's when you know it's done. So this is a heat gun. It cannot be done with a hairdryer. One of the most common questions I get asked when embossing is, can you just do it with a hairdryer? And the reason is no. A heat gun emits heat. A hairdryer blows air. So a hairdryer would blow and dry the ink and blow the powder off, whereas this leaves the powder where it is and it just lets it melt where it is. I also do this holding it in the air so that I can see where it has melted. The other thing, make sure the heat gun is not facing your hand. It gets really hot and you can burn yourself. So typically I will hold it up so the heat can go right through, and I'll have the heat gun facing away from me. Now let's do that part where my hand was. Now, as we've turned it around, there's a couple spots that or a spot that I noticed that wasn't completely done. While your heat gun is here and still hot, just kind of twist it and make sure that everything is completely done. And you'll notice that as I went through it, I started going faster and faster, and that's because the heat gun is hot and it happens a lot quicker. So now I will take my trimmer out and I will cut the entire thing up. So first thing I do is I line up one of the sides, and then typically, no, I was going to say typically the rest of it will be square, but sometimes it's not, so I don't necessarily rely on squaring it up. I rely on making sure it's straight with the words there. And then there we go. So from here, and what I do is I line up the edge of my ruler here with the bottom part of one of the sentiments, and I just cut the entire page up. So it takes a little bit longer than just stamping and cutting one sentiment, but in the end, you have a ton of sentiments ready to go. So in the end, it's a time saver. It just takes a little bit of time right now to get it all done. I will do that for the rest of the sheet. And then what I do for these ones, rather than doing these ones with a trimmer, I'll just take out my scissors and I'll just cut right in between them. And then I'll put them in my little tin. And for this particular class, some of them, I'm even covering them with the Inca Gold to customize them to the card that I'm making. But once again, a great way to get a ton of sentiments all at once and have them ready to go for your next project.